Deal. The complete forecast coming up. Good Morning Erie starts right now.
From your news leader.
Tuesday morning, and it's the 3rd year anniversary of the war in Ukraine, and one local university remembering the lives that have been lost. That story coming up on Good Morning Erie.
You're watching Jet 24 Action News. Good Morning Erie, your news leader.
Good Morning Erie, it is Tuesday. I'm Brian Wilk.
Hey, good morning to you. I'm meteorologist Craig Flint. Like I said, rain showers, so you'll need the umbrella this morning. Light rain, drizzle. Shouldn't last all day, though. Should taper off as we go into the afternoon. Temperatures starting out mild again in the low 40s, hit 50 yesterday.
I'm not complaining at all, but like I said before, I didn't get a chance to enjoy it outside.
Well, that's your own fault.
I know. I
don't know what to tell you.
Usually Mondays and Tuesdays are my chores day.
Chores?
Yes.
Oh.
So I get all those done so I can enjoy the rest.
What do you do on weekends then?
I go out and do stuff and...
You go out and do stuff?
Yeah.
Go on a bender?
That's not one of the things I ever do, usually. Not at this point in my life.
Oh, I see. Go out and do stuff. Interesting.
Yes.
Inquiring minds.
Inquiring minds want to know.
Actually, I really don't care.
I know you don't
I hope you enjoy your weekends.
Well, thank you so much. I do my chores early so I can enjoy my rest of the time of the week.
There you go.
All righty, Craig. See you in a few minutes.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much. Well, the Bicentennial Tower is lighting up for National Eating Disorders Awareness Week. White Pine Center for Healing is recognizing Eating Disorder Awareness Week in an effort to bring awareness, understanding, and support to a vast majority of community of people who experience eating disorders. Eating disorders have the highest mortality rate of any mental health issue, second to opioid abuse.
A person in this country dies from an eating disorder every 52 minutes. The top 2 causes of death are cardiac issues and suicide. So these are serious, serious mental health issues. They're not a choice, they're not a lifestyle. They are a range of diseases that really affect the entire body.
The Bicentennial Tower lit up in green and blue yesterday evening. As the war in Ukraine enters its 4th year, local Ukrainians are remembering the countless lives that have been lost in the battle. Reporter Tyler Gallagher has more on how local Ukrainians are remembering this day.
The war in Ukraine has been raging on for 3 years now, and local Ukrainians are still advocating for a stop to violence. Monday night, members of the First Ukrainian Pentecostal Church held a special service to remember those lost to the war and pray for an end to the fighting. One member of the church didn't want to go on camera, but he says they just want people to stop dying. And to remember some of those lost too soon to the war, one local university is telling their stories. Now, to recognize the anniversary of the war in Ukraine, Mercyhurst University is displaying these unissued diplomas which tell the story of students in Ukraine who lost their lives too soon.
What unites all of these stories is that they were all of their studies were cut short through the war, and what I particularly love about the fact that this is hosted on college campuses is that this is something that our students can see themselves in this position.
The stories of 40 Ukrainian students will be on display at the Mary D'Angelo Performing Arts Center until March 1st. One display tells the story of a 19-year-old mother of twins with goals to graduate and become a landscape designer who died when 2 Russian bombs struck her house. Duda says this story and the others on display highlight how the war isn't being fought on a battlefield, but in the towns and cities that many civilians call home.
It's important for us to keep in mind that this war is ongoing, that this war has civilian casualties day by day. A lot of these casualties are either civilian young people, some of them were active duty military at the time of their death.
And as the violence continues in Ukraine, Duda says it's important for Americans to listen to Ukrainians and imagine what peace could look like. Tyler Gallagher, Jet 24 Action News.
And Jet 24 Action News is your local election headquarters. A familiar face in Mill Creek Township has announced their bid for re-election. Dan Ouellette will be seeking a 2nd term in office as the Mill Creek Township Supervisor. Ouellette was first elected in 2019, and during his time in office, he's overseen public works, planning and development, engineering, and the fire department, where he was a former first responder and fire chief. He says the theme of his campaign is promises kept.
Told the voters that I would do everything I could to improve the roads, work on our stormwater issues, and especially work on our public safety issues as it deals with the fire service in the township. We were in a critical point with the lack of volunteers, and we have addressed that now with career firefighters.
And Ouellette tells us that he believes his experience in the position could help the township continue to build momentum. For all your election news, turn to your local election headquarters, on air and online, yourerie.com. A new restaurant is welcoming the community for a taste of authentic Afghan food. Ariana Halal Kitchen is now open. It's the first Afghan restaurant here in Erie. The restaurant brings flavors and culture from Afghanistan, India, and the Middle East. The son of the restaurant's owner tells us the meaning behind the name.
Halal means that in our religion, there is halal and also haram. And the halal food means that you're allowed to eat it in our religion, and the haram means that you're not supposed to eat in Islam.
The restaurant is located at 1315 Parade Street. Governor Josh Shapiro called a late afternoon press conference yesterday with a bit of good news regarding the Trump administration and frozen funds earmarked for Pennsylvania. Dennis Owens was there and has the story.
It's unclear whether it was the lawsuit filed nearly 2 weeks ago, the threat of additional legal action, or a direct conversation that Governor Shapiro had with the Trump administration officials. But here's what he said on Monday.
Every dollar that we identified at the filing of our lawsuit is currently unfrozen and once again accessible to all Pennsylvania state agencies.
Shapiro was always comfortable that it is basic legal premise that once money is appropriated by Congress, a new president can't stop it.
To put it simply, a deal is a deal.
But appropriations hearings are underway here at the Capitol as folks try to figure out the state budget. I asked the Republican chair of the House Appropriations Committee if he's concerned about the potential for future freezes and how that would impact Pennsylvania. Basically, he said no.
We don't know where the funds are often going. We don't know how they're being used. There's no accountability in government. So I think it's wise to take a look at how taxpayer dollars are being used. And I think this was just part of the process.
It is my job to protect Pennsylvania's interest, and I will use every tool at my disposal, from legal action to my direct engagement, to make sure that Pennsylvanians are protected.
I also asked the governor if he's concerned about federal workers in Pennsylvania who may be fired, laid off, or asked to justify their jobs. He said he didn't want to get into that on this day. At the state capitol, I'm Dennis Owens.
Well, minutes before Ruben Gutierrez was scheduled to be put to death in the state of Texas, or by the state of Texas, the U.S. Supreme Court stepped in to pause it. At issue, Gutierrez says he was denied access to DNA to prove that he wasn't the main killer. Texas says he's just trying to delay execution. Washington correspondent Vinay Simlot explains the arguments before the court.
Mr. Chief Justice, and may it please the court.
Supreme Court justices heard arguments Monday in the Texas death penalty case against Ruben Gutierrez. A jury sentenced him to death for the 1998 Brownsville, Texas killing of Escalástica Harrison. Prosecutors say Gutierrez was part of a scheme to steal $600,000 from the 85-year-old retired school teacher who didn't trust banks. Gutierrez wants the high court to give him the right to sue for DNA evidence.
If Gutierrez is nowhere to be found, it undermines a little bit how they perceived all this to have transpired in the trailer.
Gutierrez's lawyers argue the DNA will prove he wasn't the main person who killed Harrison and make him ineligible for the death penalty.
He didn't actually kill, attempt to kill, or anticipate a life would be taken.
Prosecutors from Texas say Gutierrez is just trying to delay his execution. As lawyers and justices were arguing over procedure, one of the justices asked the state of Texas, why not just turn over the DNA evidence?
It seems odd to be fighting it tooth and nail. Don't you want to know you're convicting the right person for the right thing?
But the Texas Solicitor General says even if DNA evidence comes back in Gutierrez's favor, he could still be executed.
And the best he's got is that he was there and he was watching his friend stab Miss Harrison while he was robbing her.
That execution is on hold while the high court considers the case. In Washington, I'm Vinay Simlot.
Currently 5:41 a.m. Coming up on Good Morning Erie, we've got a look at the latest news from the hills of Hollywood.